Hi, everyone, and welcome to Total Education with Neil. It's been a while. A month seems like, I just can't believe it, how unbelievable everything is going. You got to go to my website, TotalTutor.net. We have Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, Google+, all the different things, and Instagram. Exciting things coming up with the Total Education Network that I've decided, a lot of emails. What happened to your advice show? You're interviewing a lot of people on advice, but they're not Jarrett or you. We missed that on 1080 WWNO, which is more of a celebrity show. And again, that's on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern and 88.3 FM on Fridays at 4:30 and 9 a.m. on Thursdays. And so what I decided is we're going to go back to what our goal is, to create an advice show and book. I'm waiting for my co-host, Jarrett, to finally start to write the book because I have publishers interested. Yes. But he has to figure out enough time to do it. So I'm welcome my co-host, Jarrett. Jarrett, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Neil. And I want to just share with all the places that our audience can find me. I do have email, so certainly
so are you going to give out your email to all?
Absolutely not.
Oh my gosh, is he a private person? I give my email out. I give everything out. My phone number, but I don't know if I would get in trouble. Right. But anyone can find me anywhere.
I'm a very public person. I just have not joined that whole kind of instant media and still trying to figure it out. But people can find me sitting right alongside you during our radio shows and our TV shows. So I'm always glad to be a part of here. And I am actually very excited that we've had so much input about the going back to our roots, the advice shows, the focusing on relationships with, parent, child, caregiver, child. It's actually really significant and important, and it is a big part of our book because we know as soon as I actually start writing that book, we do have publishers lined up for us, and because there's been just in 4 years, we've accumulated so much information that we've shared with our audience. We know that the market and the demand is there. I just actually have to get on board and start writing it.
I have gotten ear beaten by my producer and Dave Cable, who's fantastic, giving us this opportunity in the television studios. So I'm not freezing down in my studios, in the Total Education Network studios, in my personal studio, to get the opportunity to be with live interactive people and not staring at a wall unfinished. Thank you, Dave. But ultimately, you guys have kind of said to me, well, what's happened to the education portion of this about certain people I interview? But again, I branched out in many ways, and at least I can say it on this show. I've branched out. I can't say it on WRCT. Hey, it is what it is. But the thing is, Jarrett, we have to get into this early intervention thing. Covering last night's show, which Jarrett again wanted his beauty sleep, so he did not tape the Total Education Hour on 88.3 last night. Dr. Michael Robinson. The first topic was again involving language and early literacy. And it talked about, studies have said, and they're pushing, and they're putting blame on poverty. We're putting a blame on poverty, Jarrett, and also we're not just poverty, we're putting a blame on not being stay-at-home moms, which I really took an offense to in the article. It's at educationnews.org if anyone wants to check it out. Well, I thought our topic today, which I think was going to be a really awesome topic, is we're going to touch base and talk about early intervention, birth to 3. Something I miss, and both Jarrett and I were former developmental therapists. It's a situation we both have enjoyed it as educators to educate that age group, and I do consulting in that area with the book, the advice things, but he's moved on to more greener pastures with the book and also your son's foundation in the development and all these things, but you truly see that this is where it starts.
Well, and
the
Neil,
womb to 3.
Right, and actually, Neil, I'm so glad that you have mentioned that. I mean, one of the things that I've looked at is explored the option of moving into my own private practice because as important as early intervention is, I don't think it went far enough, and far enough by like what we're talking about within our show right now. Again, early intervention focuses on whatever delays a child might have or a family might have, and that could be physical delays, not walking soon enough, not producing language as early as we might like. and it can be emotional and behavioral delays, and certainly that was my primary role, was looking at behavior modification, and I felt that early intervention didn't necessarily go far enough in that role, and that's the beauty of our show. We talk about the importance of relationships. So many times we're guided by checklists, and we forget that life is more than a checklist. It's more than a to-do list, and so one of the areas that I've moved on to is exploring, even what options are open for a private practice that really explores building the parent-child, caregiver-child relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important in so many ways. But really, I am just a huge fan of early intervention.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's talk about specifically enough what parents should be doing, but they're not doing,
absolutely,
especially when they're born.
Well, and trying to do.
They're trying to, but we all know how crazy all the different things.
You talked about your radio show and the discussion you had yesterday about the stay-at-home mom. And in a perfect world, maybe both parents would be staying home and interacting with the child. But parents do what we need to do, and if both parents need to work to support the family and create stability through economics, and we know that the role of poverty is significant in the challenges that are faced within relationships. But now let's take, we know our world isn't perfect. What can parents do to foster that relationship with their child? And this goes to day one. You mentioned about within the womb, that the child is born, and that's an incredibly emotional, physically exhausting. There's so many things that are happening to everyone's body within that situation. But that first touch, and this is a passion of mine. I've seen this. We've seen this as therapists. That first touch between mother and baby is so important, because if you've ever been in that situation, you see that happen, and you see the baby calm. Now, at that point, the baby, the child, the infant is, we're talking almost all primitive reflexes here. Right. But the ability of another human being to calm the most primitive of emotions within that child is incredibly significant. And it starts there. And that's beautiful. And if you've ever seen it happen for our observers, our audience right now, they've experienced and they've seen it. It's so important to see that, to carry it on. And we do so well in those first interactions as parents with our infant, and then life kind of gets in the way.
Exactly. Life does get in the way. And I think that we see so much, I don't have to do anything. Forget about it. It's over. We don't have to do anything. The child's just going to develop on its own. Ultimately, that could be the case. But the emotional, social well-being of that child can be hurt really terribly. Well, and that's a very big concern in the process, where I guess people that study, nothing really happens. At third grade, they're all caught up anyways, Jarrett. And that's what we hear all the time from people like Jason, the public school guy.
Well, in fact, we could go in the opposite direction. And there's the maxim of, give me a child until the age of 7, and I'll give you a man. And what that statement is saying, and it's an old proverb, but what that statement is saying is, everything that happens from birth to the age of 7, now we know birth to the age of 3, really matters in the emotional, the physical, and even the spiritual development of that child. And by spiritual, I just mean the whole connection of everything within the community, the family. But we know that birth to 3 really matters, and that's really the goal of early intervention. One of the areas that I loved about early intervention was going into the home, meeting a family that was maybe struggling with some of the behavior, and our audience might be saying, behavior is difficult. You have a 1-year-old. Right. They have significant behavior issues. But that's because their brain is so underdeveloped. The most developed part of their brain is the most primitive part of the brain. And looking at behavior modification, providing parents with, that's what our show started as. And then we continue to grow as that. But a new way, a new paradigm, a new way to look at the world, a different way to look at the world, and say, we can attack this, we can approach this and with methods that are caring, nurturing, loving,
right,
and make positive connections.
So let's look at, I guess, and I want to show that being a talk show host, I sometimes always ask the questions instead of provide information. Well, my business coach has told me I got to stop doing that, unless the spotlight's on me, it's always on my guest. Well, this is what we've decided through a lot of emails. We want Neil and Jarrett back, just like you were on 1080. Well, we are just growing so much with a lot of the Total Education brand. We had to do this. So I thought, let's go right to birth. Yep. The baby's born. The first important thing I say, and then we'll go back with some strategies of how we can utilize it, is the smile. How important it is to give your child a smile and be happy and cheerful to them in a certain way, to interact from the beginning, even when they can't smile, when it could be just gas. So they can explain some of those strategies right off the bat from that.
But now we will look at the checklist, the milestone checklist. One of the first ways that a baby communicates, and you mentioned reflexive with gas, and that's always always kind of funny. And later on we hear that when the baby's babbling and we accidentally hear dada or mama, and everyone goes crazy, and they should. Again, when you see that happen, it's absolutely beautiful. I've been in the home when a child has taken their first steps. Dad's at work, doesn't even get to see the child take the first steps. And I think our audience can see the joy that I have even talking about that, being there and seeing a mom's reaction.
Exactly.
And it is an absolute wonderful thing. But you mentioned the smile. Yeah, we know that at 2 months, a baby can develop a meaningful smile, not reflexive, not gas. By 4 months, the smile should be there. That would be it's one of the first emotional triggers that you're looking at. But the smile is important. The smile doesn't come naturally. Research has shown this. Children in orphanages, particularly in the European orphanages, they smile eventually, but it isn't necessarily the meaningful emotional smile that develops at 2 and 3 months, and that happens because of the parents, the caregivers, smiling at the child, making eye contact, talking to the child, creating a bond.
And let's kind of go into that further. Let's go with strategies. A lot of times we go into so much deep stuff that educators would love, but we really got to look at the parent, the everyday parent. And the key thing is they're born, start smiling. Give them a smile, interact with them. So some of the strategies we'll do is when changing a diaper is one of the key component parts of doing it. When you're changing that diaper, even though, oh my gosh, I'm about to have my 5th child, so I've changed so many diapers. Well, look at my hands. It's because of that. Somebody knows a good hand cream. Please tell me a good hand cream out there that could help my hands because of how many diapers and all the different things. So when you change that diaper, instead of saying this is a really awful, and this is good for the parent as well, smile, talk to them. That's one of the first strategies that you do because, again, at that point, they're not struggling with a diaper like I have to wrestle Max to the ground for a diaper now. But this is the time to develop the bond. No one likes changing diapers, but every second, a good friend of mine, Dr. And I forget her name, and it'll come to me, it's like Dr. Maureen. She talks about the teachable minute and about every minute you could teach something. So give an example, Jarrett. Let's go right through it. Let's go say that diaper change. How many different lesson plans you could do it. And we're talking a week old.
Yes.
We're talking 2 days old.
Right. What you mentioned there, everyday interactions, and that's the beauty of early intervention. You know, so many times we get into kind of almost the esoteric, the profound descriptions of what happens to our body within the brain. And sometimes parents will just say, that's wonderful, Jarrett, and I'm really glad that you explained all that to me, but give me a concrete example of what I can do. The diaper change is absolutely a concrete example of what you're looking to do. You want to be about, especially with a newborn, you want to be about 12 inches away from that face after you have changed the diaper. I'd suggest changing the diaper first before you go into all those interactions. Make it a little bit pleasant for the parent. But you can do it before, you can do it after. But, you know, be about 12 inches away. As the child gets older, you can move a little bit further back. We know that the muscle control of the eyes develops. They can see a little bit further. But that closeness really matters. The child is going to feel your breath. All these things are so important. Now, the child, that's the first part. You know, a week old, you're doing this. You're doing this when you bring your child home from the hospital. And you continue with that, and as the child gets older. But these are the daily interactions. A diaper change is one of the best ways to do it. I always suggest that parents get down on the floor with the baby. Don't limit yourself to the diaper changer. Get down on the floor with the baby.
I do that because I'm too
absolutely.
Because they don't make those diaper changers the size for me.
Well, you're right. You're pretty tall. You could be a little bit on the frightening side. Get down on the floor, make yourself less scary.
You would believe Max never is afraid of me. None of my kids have been afraid of me.
And they're not because of the relationship.
Exactly. So we get back. We're going to go more. And it's kind of like I thought, we have great opportunities to talk to people off campus. But here at the studios of Bethel Park, I feel that this is something that's missing, advice from birth to adulthood. And we're going to continue this process starting this month all the way up in age group till I guess Dave's kid is all the way in college. You're watching Total Education with Neil, with Jarrett, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thanks to your generosity, Marines have delivered Christmas to children in need since 1947.
And now, another adventure with Savings Man.
This is great. Every day should be like this.
It will be when I retire in a few years. I've been planning and saving.
Did you save for me?
Well, this is unexpected.
Where'd you come from?
Out of the blue, just like an illness, an emergency, or
That's enough, Mr. Unexpected.
Savings Man.
There's still time to plan. Find out how at choosetosave.org with a ballpark estimate worksheet.
I will. Thanks, Savings Man.
No, thank you.
So visit choosetosave.org today.
What are you doing, dear?
My finances. Every week I divide my allowance. Some to spend, some to charity. But the first thing I do is set aside 10% to save for my future.
That's awfully grown up. Did you learn that in school?
No, Dad taught me. He said if you want something tomorrow, you have to save today. Dad's saving for retirement. I'm saving for a new bike.
Choose to save. To learn how to get started, get your free Power to Choose brochure.
He's a smart man, your father.
We're back to Total Education with Neil, with Jarrett, and I'm having a lot of fun kind of doing what my passion is. I have 1,000 different passions, but this is really helping people, educate them, and one of my life purposes is to educate people from birth all the way up to adulthood in all areas of life. So it's education, but it can be much, much more, and education is such a broad term. Like you think of PBS and how they educate people in so many different ways. Well, I think I do it in a more entertaining way through my network. And again, you can go to my website, totaltutor.net, for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, and all the different areas. Or email me at nhaley@totaltutor.org. We're going right early. We're going right to babies, and especially with our new time slot, that all the great time slots that Bethel Park has provided. And if you're in the Pittsburgh area, and not in the Bethel Park area, you're going to be able to pick up the show. Just call your local cable provider. Now, basically, we're going into the process, Jarrett, of the diaper change. That is the first one, where we're looking at ultimately the smile. I want to keep going into these interactions because we're really talking about 2-3 days old all the way up to 2 months old. So another one is the feeding. Either mom is breastfeeding or bottle feeding. But this is something where dad should make sure, even if mom is breastfeeding, to make sure they use a bottle. So basically at this point in time, this is where the language develops, not just the smile, because the baby's not going to be able to, you're going to be able to look in the baby's eyes, but it's a lot of conversation, a lot of talking that needs to be developed. Give us some strategies on that, and I'll give you some of mine.
Right. So now, again, we're talking more towards infancy here. When we are feeding the baby, we're meeting a reflexive need, a regulatory need. The child's hungry. They need something in their belly. And we've all seen this with infants. I mean, they're showing the earliest, here's where they are talking to you. They're showing the earliest signals of rage. The earliest, if you feed me right now, I am really angry. It's a different cry. It may not sound different, but emotionally it is a different cry of pain, gas pain,
exactly,
as opposed to I'm hungry, I need to eat. There's some of the earliest interactions. What can mom and dad do if we're using a bottle? They can get that bottle as quickly as possible, meet the emotional need of that child. Bring that level down, bring the hormonal level of that rage down to a nice calm state. Now you're talking to the child while they're eating. You're gazing in the eyes. You're staring straight at them. You're smiling. You're talking. They're hearing your voice. The key, though, is getting that. You can try doing all that while they're mad. It's not going to have too much of an impact. But there's the significance of a learning opportunity for feeding, an emotional opportunity for feeding, meeting a need. And then this is so important. Is when you feed your child, you're developing trust.
Yes.
The child, that infant is learning to count on the parent to meet that need. We know the child can't do it on their own. In fact, the infant can't even regulate on their own. Right. They can't even calm down on their own. They need the parent or the caregiver there to provide that stability. So now we're talking trust. But the language, it is important. As you talk to your child, they're going to be hearing the different inflections that we have within our own voices. The child will learn that. It will develop even longer. As the child gets older, here's some things. Now you have a 7-8-month-old child, you're encouraging them to hold the bottle on their own.
The lack of sleep that the parent develops at this point, which I don't sleep much at all. I've improved my sleep. This has been a thing the last couple months, and I have a lot more energy, sleeping about 6 hours compared to 4 to 3 some days. What we have to do, we're not sleeping well. We have to say, let's take all our emotional attachments and detach ourselves to that, and attach ourselves to that child, and say, even though we're tired, even though we might be hungry, even though we don't want to do this at this time, because we're human beings, we need, and we definitely need to do it, is talk to them. So here's some strategy. Jarrett really can, he's a medical guy. He could go into that brain and tell us exactly what that child. I will break it down simply for you. You're going ahead, feeding that baby. Tell him how much, or him or her, how cute they are, how you love them, hum to them, sing to them, look into their eyes when you're feeding them, smile. All these little strategies while feeding that starts with a bottle, but continues throughout when you're feeding, where you can do a lot of academic work. A lot of times you might not think your child's paying attention to you. What I've talked to my wife and so many other people is they have a notebook when they're born, and they're writing down and observing everything in their brain and rehearsing it, being ready to try you later on. And they copy, all my kids copy each other. And I hear the same saying, same quote, same situation. So starting early is so key. Any other ideas with the bottle, and we can jump into some where they're growing up a little bit more?
Well, again, we talked about here's where you can develop, again, some interactions as you're bringing that bottle closer. And this is, again, at infancy. We're talking 2 weeks old, 3 weeks old, a month old. You're bringing that bottle, slow it down a little bit.
Right.
Let the goal is still to feed the child, but slow it down a little bit. Let that child see the bottle. Let them get excited when they, I know our parents have seen this out there. The 1-month-old who is now beginning to open the mouth really wide as that bottle approaches, or as the baby's drawn closer to the body. If you watch your child learn and show that they have learned. That mouth will open, the eyes will get bigger. I mean, that child, in fact, you'll even start to see at a month old, the child stop crying just by the parent getting closer or bringing the bottle. That's growth of an emotional state. We know at 1 week old, that child's going to continue crying until we get that bottle into the mouth. But at a month old, the child has learned, oh, I know what's coming. This is important. This is going to help me. But and that's language. The child has learned a visual language, but I would classify it as language. But the child has learned so much within that 1 month. But here's what I'd like the audience, and I'd ask you this question too. I think the audience can definitely see it with us here. But as we're talking about this, those of you that have parents, really this is with everyone. We've all have had interactions with infants and children. Right. I'd like the audience to just think about how they feel right now with the positive things that we've just talked about. That's the brain.
Exactly.
And I think everybody can see it with the way we're talking right now. We feel really good.
Oh, yes.
And our audience probably, for those that say, I remember that. That was amazing.
Exactly.
And their body, believe it or not, their body is releasing these wonderful chemical compounds that are flooding over their body.
Oh, absolutely. And internationally as well they are. Especially our good friends over the UK, John Hicks from European Health Television that we're on. And Jarrett's definitely putting the medical perspective in this. And I think it's so key in the emotional and social emotional needs of the child. Well, when you look at not just that, let's look at specifically the next step, and which is all the routines at this age. And I think we're looking at from birth to 3-4 weeks. And then we're going to start developing language. But bedtime's another one. When you do get them into a routine, and I hope it's a month in or 3 weeks in or 2 weeks in, whenever they are close to falling asleep, this is the opportunity, or during a bath, to have a conversation. And a lot of moms, I know you're sometimes, or dads, are left behind. You're left behind in a particular way. That you're not able to have that other interaction of that other parent. So you don't go crazy where you're holding everything in. Talk to them about things. Talk to them about the weather. Talk to them about you can't believe that Ben Roethlisberger finally threw for 350 yards and because we used the no huddle. If we used the no huddle all the time, we'd win. So these are the things you could talk to your baby about. Yes. But make sure no other loved ones are there. They're going to think you're a wacko. But that's the key thing. The conversation is key.
Yeah, and the positive conversations. You're talking about things that may not matter to your baby at all, probably not, but the way that it is said.
Let's hope Max cares about what's going on with the Steelers.
The way that it's said is what matters. The calm voice, the voice that is moving up and down on the pitch register. All of those things do matter. And watch your baby's face as you're doing this. I'd encourage our audience right now, watch your baby's face, or watch any baby's face as you're doing this. Change your inflection. Get a little bit softer. Right. Don't get real loud, but get a little bit louder. Watch your baby's eyes. Watch their legs. Are they starting to kick around? Are they starting to wiggle?
Exactly.
That's your key that the baby's saying, wow, this is really cool stuff. I like what's happening here. But again, make it, use those daily interactions as not as chores, but instead as opportunities to create the love of the bond of love. Exactly. and the connections between those. And that's the beauty of early intervention. And going into people's homes and having a family say after 6-7 months that my work helped them develop their relationship with their child, but within the whole family. I mean, I've had so many times, I couldn't even count the number of times where I've had a parent say to me, I see the world differently now. And that was the foundational principles of our earliest shows. And we're still doing that today. But making the world different.
Exactly. And transforming that child and knowing that you have that child. And parenting is not easy. It's very difficult. And it's going to continue to be difficult. And hopefully we're able to take you through the monthly trials of the early ages, the theme of the end of 2013 to 2014, then going 2014 to 2015, the development of children and how important it is. Because that's one of the things that I'm a huge advocate for, is that development. So then let's go to the next step, and we look at specifically all these areas: diaper changes, bedtime, all these things. The first development after the smile is baby talk. And I'm going to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Baby talk, a lot of parents don't want to repeat it. Is that correct?
Correct. That is absolutely
yeah.
right. You know, that they feel like that it'll hinder language. Here's what I tell parents. Well, first of all, I always suggest, I never tell parents what to do. I always suggest that they try this or do something. When your baby, and you're correct, Neil, at about 4 to 5 months, that child is going to start to make what we call the cooing sounds, not babbling sounds, but they're the vowel sounds, the ahs, the oohs. Those are significant. They're significant for muscle development, right. But that's the scientific portion of it. You can
go the scientific portion.
But the important part of that is your child is really making attempts to talk. At this point, I suggest to parents go ahead and copy that same sound back.
Right, and that's a surprise.
Yeah, because they've been taught that, if I speak like a baby, they'll never learn to talk.
Or they're going to have to see you as a speech
exactly,
therapist.
As a speech therapist. I'll be helping them at 18 months putting words together. But what I say to them there is, this is your baby's talk. This is your... Now, when your child starts to use the actual words that we associate with language, then you avoid or you diminish the amount of baby talk.
I don't know how much I would say avoiding that until we start seeing the words come through in certain ways, but I agree with you. So
but we're talking further, way further down the line.
When we get back with language is so key. And it goes back to the article where they attack the mom that works and they attack the poor. Educationnews.org, I don't think you like me, but I really could care less because we're here for you, parents. That's my ultimate goal doing this show, is for you to help you make sure that your child develops correctly. So you can email me on haley@totaltutor.org with questions, or go to my website, totaltutor.net. When we get back, more Total Education with Jarrett and myself, Neil Haley, the Total Tutor. We'll be back in just a moment.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
The torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
The American dream need not forever be deferred.
It's the richest and the most powerful country.
Think you found every hazard out here today? Think again. The spot you missed could be a killer. That spot on your skin could be skin cancer. If you're a man over 50, you're in a group most likely to develop skin cancer, including melanoma, the kind that kills one person every hour. That's why your best shot is to check for a spot. It's easy. Follow through and check your skin. Go to spotskincancer.org to find out how. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
We're back, Total Education with Neil, and I've had such a great time coming to the TV studios and sharing with Jarrett. We talk on the phone all the time and talk to the most interesting people. Steve Grogan of the New England Patriots, to Michael Lohan, who Jarrett's really a huge fan of now. He texts me, and he texts me his email so that hopefully he can help out Jarrett's son, as you've talked about, and being on other different shows. But right now we're going into the birth end, but I always want to keep people understand this is a portion of the Total Education Network. To get all of it, you got to go to the website so that you can check out all the cool things that Jarrett and I are doing. But we were at the point of language now, and the language ability of the baby talk. Here's a strategy I do in a lot of ways is I'll go da, 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 or ba, 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 or and I'll change the inflection to see if they'll copy it. And it's like a back and forth, ba, 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 da, 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 or and then they'll do it, and it's creating. What is that doing? Tell us the developmental terms of what I was trying to explain.
You can see me smiling right here, but I would just say go ahead and do that again for our audience that might really want to see almost a 7-footer talking like a child who's about 1 foot in length, 24 inches in length. So no, I thought that was pretty funny, and I was smiling while you were doing it because it reminded me of all the things that I saw as a therapist and talking to parents on suggesting what they can do with their child, and what is that doing when you're making those sounds? I would suggest to parents copy the sound so you imitated the sounds that you've heard your children use. By saying them back to them, you're developing scientifically, you're developing all the tools for communication. You're teaching your child how to pause. One of the neatest things, you just reminded me of this when you were making all these sounds. I remember a child was at about 5 months of age, and I was visiting a parent. He was a child that had some challenges at birth, and that's why I was there. But I remember saying to the mom and the dad, this was an evening appointment, and they were doing the bath and got the child's nice and calm now, feels good, warm, regulated, ate, and the child is just real. You can see happy, content is a better word. And I said to the family, I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, just try this. I said, just open and close your mouth. I said, you don't even have to make a sound. Just open and close your mouth. Make your eyes bigger.
Right.
And they did that, and the child copied it right back at 4.5 months of age.
Wow.
And this was a family that had significant challenges at birth with their child. And I remember that moment as if it were yesterday, and it had to be 6 or 7 years ago. But I remember the feeling and then the child had the biggest toothless smile you could ever imagine after it did. But I remember what the parents felt like and what they explained to me. And they said, wow, my child is really smart. How could they do that?
Yeah.
I said, that's what you've done for your child. I said, yeah, your child is smart. Kids are wonderfully brilliant.
And all children are different.
Yes.
Max is already saying his ABCs, and he's only 15 months. So definitely a different, and counting 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. But my other 2 kids before Ava didn't do that. So, and I don't do a ton of work with Max. I do. Just to give you an example, I can't repeat them. It's not going to happen. Well, when I'm doing dishes, they're being like, again, another 6'10". But that's, again, we are in a new society. The men take on a lot of the roles and chores at certain times. And Mr. Montrepreneur that I am, the fact is when I'm doing dishes, Max is in the high chair. I'm making sure Max is not just sitting there.
Right.
I'm interacting with him, getting it going, and then Annika chimes in and says the whole ABCs, and then Anastasia has to do whatever, but we're interacting throughout all our daily routine. We still, even though we have a baby, we still have to do dishes. We still have to vacuum. We still have to dust. We still have to put clothes away. We still have to do laundry. The laundry list continues. We have to do all those things, but during that time, we don't have to be quiet.
Not at all. And again, here we go. The daily interactions matter. Now, we're going to jump long term here. We're going to go down the road. Only for a moment. Because as I'll say to parents, everything that we do sets the foundation. And everything that we're doing at 4 months of age matters when that child is 7.
Yes.
Now my son Davey is 7. He participates in chores. He puts away dishes. He puts away clothes. But you do that at the beginning stages.
Right.
At 4, and now Max is at 13 months, 14 months. He's in the high chair. He's seeing you doing these things. Maybe you even give him a cloth so that he can practice wiping down his tray. Or maybe he'll chew on it. Maybe he'll throw it to the floor. But the point is, you're encouraging him to interact. You're encouraging him to have a job. Here's what's so wonderful about a child. Their whole life is a job.
Exactly.
Their occupation is to play and learn.
Right.
But they can play and learn in doing some of the very same activities that you're doing with them. We've talked about it 12, 13 months. We know it happens earlier for other children, but pulling off the socks. Now they're older, you're trying to teach them to put on the socks.
Right.
All of those things are interactions that are learning opportunities, but you're also teaching them about what daily life is like. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do in providing with your child all those opportunities. But, again, I like how you brought up the whole idea of Max is in the high chair while you're doing the dishes.
And see, a lot of people say, you're neglecting that child if they're in the pack and play. Why aren't you interacting as much? No, you're missing the point, guys. We're busy. Parents these days are more busy than ever because of the opportunity not to have the stay-at-home mom, as Dr. Mike and I talked about last night, which, again, that article leads to, I guess, this whole ingenious idea of going the way that Jarrett and I make us experts is Jarrett and I could talk about this, then we could talk about how we're going to tutor a child with calculus or prepare them for the SAT. It's going to be a long time. Maybe I'll be completely bald by that point, and I'll have no teeth by that point if we go through monthly this type of interaction. But I find this fascinating as a way of maybe I grab that iPhone and start providing some of those other tips on my YouTube page. Because the thing is, parents tell me all the time, no one breaks it down for us. Or they just say something like it's simple. No, we go through this every day. So looking at specifically when we're talking about language, that's one of the major things in language development. When they say that first word, because we could go back into we're talking language development, we could go. People understand there's more to teaching birth to 3 than there is teaching the older kids, because we're seeing this flat out. So I want to go into a little bit more of language, and I'm going to want to move it back to some of the other areas of development at this age, because we're kind of spanning the globe in such a quick period of time. So let's look at this. The language is starting to develop. Then they start saying a couple words. We want to continue to repeat and use the same strategies we talked about. And a lot of these strategies, interaction from smile to language to more language, every time it can be done in the same strategy we talked about. Grocery store, our daily routine. It doesn't have to be like, let's schedule a session. I do recommend a 1 hour a day to work, but I can't do it. So I'm going to be honest. I can't do it, and I wish I could. But I try, I guess it's in increments, that 1 hour of instruction. But that's key. The key component is just to do that. Go ahead.
Right, and Neil, again, you touched on some of the ways that you can do this, but our interactions with children, you're putting your child, you're zipping their jumper, their pajamas, and again, at 8, 9 months of age, make the sound with your child. Do zip, zip as you're bringing it up and down. Your child won't be able to say that yet, but you'll get a reaction from them. But it's that communication. But now your child has accidentally used mama and dada. And when I say accidentally, it comes out in the course of their babbling, and you hear mama. What do? You get excited. You're going to say it back to your child. You just said mama.
Yeah.
And you're gonna look at that child's face and you're gonna say mama, and you're gonna do it again and again, and your child learns that. And these are the again the significant important parts. The language is there in your child. It's coded in there. It's gonna get there. But they have to learn how to control their mouth, their tongue, their breathing. Imagine how important breathing is for producing sounds. We know it's critical. It's the only way we get the voice box to vibrate. Your child has to learn all those things. And, those things really do make a difference. That interaction helps that child do that. But again, the audience can see my smile here thinking about when we've heard those first words. But yeah, your child uses that word accidentally, you repeat it back to them.
So the interaction, the smile, the talking, the more they know you're paying attention to them at all times, the better you're going to see development of speech, language, and emotional behavior.
Well, here's one of the ways we know that the car seat can start to be challenging at a very, very early age. The child's fussy. They don't like to be constrained, especially once they start rolling over and being able to scoot. They don't want to be clipped, into and restrained in something. Use the car seat as a really positive interaction tool for your child. You get them in, you're singing a song as you're putting them in, and you're clicking the 5-point harness. Make those clicking sounds. Talk to them. Say their name. Let them know that you're there. Turn it into a very positive method of communication and emotional state and regulation. But that's just one way. We're getting kids in car seats all the time. Turn that into something where you say, I'm going to take 30 seconds and just talk to my baby here.
And so much, even though it's stressful, especially the morning routine of a bunch of kids, is to make sure that you're truly caring and know that they care. Because again, it's draining, it's tiring. Up out of bed, 6 o'clock in the morning, alarm runs in, jump up out of bed, get my clothes ready, all these different things, get the kids to go in the car, go boom, fast. Well, we have to move fast, but we can have fun moving fast, and that's key.
That is the key, having fun.
Exactly.
It really is. All of those daily interactions can be fun.
Exactly. All right, when we get back, more Total Education with Neil, with Jarrett, and I think we need to go into some other things of development. The standing, the close to walking, even though I am, I guess, ranked the worst walking kids ever. Max is still not walking 15 months. Annika was 17. Anastasia's 17. Ava's 16 months. We hold them too much. We're going to talk about some of those things, and again, those things will be also in our book. My website, totaltutor.net, Twitter, totaltutor, and email me, and haley@totaltutor.org, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Getting old is horrible, okay? Horrible.
You're not old.
Oh, Melissa, come on, look at me, grow up. The only men that hit on me these days are undertakers.
I don't want to talk about this.
You've got to understand what's going to happen. You've got to understand my needs. You've got to understand my wants.
No, la.
Don't give me la.
I can't do this.
Talk to your family about aging, even if they're not ready to listen.
No matter who you are, it's not easy talking about aging. For help, go to voa.org/talk. A message from Volunteers of America.
From Maine to Maui, thousands of high school students across the country are getting in on the action by volunteering in their communities.
Action teams of high school students are joining Volunteers of America and Major League Baseball players to help train and inspire the next generation of volunteers.
It's easy to start an action team at your school, so you too can get in on the action.
Are you in? Get in on the action at actionteam.org.
When I was younger, I didn't want to admit I had a serious disease. Because of my diabetes, I lost the sight in my left eye. Misconceptions continue to surround this monster public health issue, but the simple truth is, diabetes can often be prevented and complications avoided. You're not alone. Understand the realities of diabetes and know that you can manage it and lead a full, active life.
We're back to Total Education with Neil. Enjoying the conversation. We're starting with birth to adulthood in education. That's going to be a long time, maybe 30 or 40 years, the way we go with our expertise. But we've been talking about, ultimately, interaction from the birth all the way to about, let's say, 1 or 2 when it involves smile, interaction, language. We missed one thing. They're able to interact and do all those different things, and that's probably my expertise. But we're forgetting about motor development because we don't want them sitting in the high chair forever. So let's go ultimately young baby, 2 weeks old, 1 week old. They're so fragile, and you want to hold them the entire time. How do they develop that muscle development? And tell me some strategies you utilize, even at that earliest age, like when to finally stand them up a little bit and work on these things, because a lot of times people think it's just going to come again overnight, and that's not the case.
Well, and you mentioned about Max not walking yet, and one of the pieces of advice that I give to parents, and I remember I keep in mind for my own son, is that life and learning is not a a sprint. It's a marathon. And, we've talked about that. So many times we tend to push our children, and we see this in school all the time, homework at first grade. We'd be out of a job as behavioral therapists if schools would stop giving homework because that's one of the biggest battles that we face when children get older. So in some ways, I guess it's okay that they give homework because we'd be reducing one of the biggest triggers. But here's what I'll say to our audience. It's a marathon. It's a lifelong process. Exactly. So if Max isn't walking at 15 months, it's not time to panic.
But there is a time to panic in the language comparatively.
Yes, we do know that by the age of 3, if we do not see some significant language growth, that means that there could be a long-term effect here. So yes, that is exactly right.
But walking is not as important.
It is. But we know that it will get there, and we talked about children reaching it at different.
What about the best athletes? Do you
levels.
think that's would be a great research project?
It could
to
be.
look and talk to the parents of players that play for the Steelers or different
how early
things.
was their gross motor development?
When did they develop the gross motor? Because maybe we're just missing the boat that. People that want the next Tiger Woods or want the next Ben Roethlisberger, your child got to be walking at 9 months to be able to catch a ball at 1. We don't know these things.
Well, here's what I do want to say, though, but you are right with the way that we approach things now. 30 years ago, we placed babies in different positions in their crib than we do today. And we know that makes a difference in keeping the child healthy. But we also know that it makes a difference in how that child develops their gross motor movement. 30 years ago, children did walk earlier. They did roll over earlier.
Exactly.
And that's because of the way we place them in their cribs now for sleeping. They're not getting as much time on their belly. They're spending more time on their back. So what we talk about daily interactions. You have a 2-week-old child. They're not going to really be able to go on the floor on their belly and be able to tolerate it for very long.
So it would be even
safe.
2 weeks?
It would be safe if you're right there with them. You need to be right there with them. But here's what I'm going to say to parents. How do you develop some of that early muscle strength for the neck on their belly? Put them on your chest. Lay with your baby.
Interesting. So that's after the bottle or
your breastfeeding.
Content. That's helping in muscle development.
Absolutely.
Kind of give us the medical reason.
I'll try and give you I'll try and have you
Dr.
picture
Jared,
what it looks like.
Maybe you should go back to be a doctor.
Well, you're going to place your child, get into a nice reclined state. You're not going to be totally flat yourself. You want to be inclined. You could be in a reclining chair, but you want it to where you're probably, if we're going to use math, you want it so that you're inclined about maybe 20 to 30 degrees. You're not straight up in the air, but you're kind of back. Place the baby on your chest, the infant on your chest, nice and high, so the baby's crown of the head is almost right here in this position. What that does is it reduces the effects, scientifically, it reduces the effects of the Earth's gravity pull on your child. And I'll tell our audience, go ahead and try this with a 4-week-old.
I end up putting it on the shoulder.
That's all right,
because I'm a little concerned with the neck, but that's interesting.
But that's okay, too. But
I would never have thought that's part of the muscle development.
By inclining yourself, you're reducing the Earth's pull, the gravitational pull on your child. That's why you can see a child who even we put in one of those little boppies on their belly. They're able to hold their head up longer than
What age would you say that?
Use your judgment. I mean, a child, here's one of the things that I tell parents. When your infant is able to lift their head and actually turn it when they're on their belly, that's when you can feel a little bit.
What milestone do you think that is?
It's going to be about 4 months, 5 months. I mean, it's going to be. Now, you're still not placing, to be very clear, you're still not placing your child like that in the crib. I mean, absolutely not. These are things that you really want to be careful with. But what I'm saying is, you're down, you've made the diaper change. Let the child spend some time on the floor. If it's, at 4 months, the child is almost going to be starting to roll to their side. But one of the key components is that when your child is on their belly, flat on the floor, and they can lift their head and turn it to the side, left and right, now you can feel more secure about giving your child a longer and longer belly time. But now let's talk about the emotional component of that being on your chest. You've got skin-to-skin touch, or you have the breathing. They can feel the heartbeat, maybe even hear the heartbeat, your heartbeat. But more importantly, you might feel your child's heartbeat on your chest. There's a tremendous amount of emotional release that is going on at that point. But from a muscular standpoint, you're giving your child, the term we use is scaffolding.
I never would have done that.
You're helping, you're assisting your child to develop some skills that they couldn't do on their own flat on the floor.
They weren't having a 6'10", nearly almost 300-pound man walk into as a therapist back in the day when I was a therapist and say, okay, here's a 2-week-old for therapy. You go do that. Could you imagine if you're a parent, you see me coming in, okay. So that's why I don't have that expertise. Language, I do. We can get a little bit more into the motor skills development. But I think that the important part of this is the boppy, the different things. You don't constantly want to be holding them at one point because you want to develop that neck development. That's probably the first of the whole motor developments, that neck. When they're able to hold their neck up.
Use their head, and again we can
move it back and forth.
Right, and we can break it down. The earliest what you'll see is the child will be able to lift that head, and instead of the head being totally perpendicular like we are right now, there will be a slight raise in the head, maybe 30 degrees, 40 degrees. You'll see the eyes try to look up at you, and the forehead will kind of furrow as the child's forehead, the infant's forehead will do that. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And already you're teaching your child about working hard. That is incredibly hard work for a baby. I'll say this to our young parents out there who have maybe just have their baby right now. Look, how many times when you did a session as a therapist did that baby fall asleep immediately after the session? They were exhausted. They had fun, but they were exhausted. They had reached their physical limit. They needed, and I can remember parents saying, wow, after you leave, my baby sleeps for the longest time. And
I'm sure they're happy sometimes.
But that's because the baby worked hard, but had fun doing it. But you're teaching your child about resiliency at the earliest age. Think about as adults or teenagers, how quickly we give up on things. One of the beauties of this show is we've never given up. We have continued to put this out here. Even when we weren't sure how many people were listening or watching us, we continue to do it. We didn't give up. And that's what we see with infants and toddlers. They don't give up. Max still wants to walk. He might not be doing it.
We're close 3 to 4 steps and just nothing, boom. But he'll choose when he wants to.
Right, and he still does it, though. He doesn't give up.
What's amazing is once they do start walking, they don't stop. But we're not at that point. That's probably going to be the next show. So I guess we're going to summarize in a second. But one more point to this. If we're going into development, the baby's on its back. We support it.
Put your baby on the side.
The boppy,
you can put your baby on their side. You're holding them.
So at about 3 to 4 months, you can put it on its belly for a little bit.
Absolutely. You can put the baby on the belly even sooner than that.
And then you grab a toy. It's almost a strategy. So like one of the strategies would be your
car keys, a rattle, any of those things matter.
That strengthens the neck. That develops the neck development. And then rolling belly to back to belly, you're looking at 6 months. So we're probably at that point, which is amazing where we're at today. And I want to know what you think. Again, as I am also the producer and creator of the show, I just thought this is the direction. You can find anything else on my radio network. If it's authors, I'm going to be broadcasting live from my studios at the Miami Book Fair for 6 hours, 2 days of authors, Saturday and Sunday this week. Or if it's celebrities, or it's other great education experts with their craft, you can find it all at my website, toldtrue.net. But when it comes to television, we've missed one point. We're bringing it back, and we're bringing it back better than ever. Because it seems like TV, you get a lot more covered than when you're on the phone, and then you're able to be a little bit more detailed, and that's key when we're going to write our book. So go to my website, check out Jarrett by just Googling him, and I say just Jarrett. And next month, we're going to go into more of the development of the baby, more fine motor and also motor skills. But all of these things will be very important because if you learn to work with your child now, life's going to be easier with homework. Life's going to be easier with teaching them how to throw a ball because you are the #1 educator. And remember that. Parents, you're the #1 educator. I hope everyone has a great time. Again, you can check out all the different things. The radio show, if you're just the person into the radio, Thursday, 9 a.m., WRCT, 4:30 WRCT 88.3 FM, and then Saturdays, 1080 WWNL, 3 o'clock. I hope everyone has a great week. We'll talk next month or next week. Good day, everyone.